Welcome to the Calgary Sessions. This is episode number 92. I'm your host, Jeff Humphreys. Today's guest, we talked about this a couple days ago, just like it's going to be like the host interviewing the host, which is going to get all sorts of, that's going to be very interesting. So please go ahead, name and who you are.
David Oulton. I host a talk show called Face to Face with David, and now a second talk show called Who's There? And just kind of pretending I know what I'm doing.
So this is going to be a cool one just to actually hear the story behind all this and your story that led up to this, obviously. That's just how the show works. So you've seen a couple of these. Mm-hmm. I like the guests to go back as far as they want to go. Okay. Some people go back to high school. Some people go to junior high. Some people go to where they were born. So take it back as far as you want to go. And then, you and I will get it here somehow based on if I get interviewed for 10 seconds, but that's the idea. So
sure. I'll give you the brief overview. So born in the UK, we moved to Fort McMurray when I was 5. Okay. Grew up in Fort McMurray. When I was a teenager, I got adopted. It was not a good home situation in Fort McMurray. Yeah. Got adopted by a lady who was an executive film producer. We met on a movie set randomly, which that's a story in itself.
Yeah, let's go there.
Do you want that story?
Dude, I want I want every story that you can come up that you're willing to share.
Okay, sure.
That's why
this is a good story then.
Yes, because this whole environment is just. It's different than yours because yours is like there's
quick
and
condensed. Yeah.
So this is like as long as this thing doesn't run out of recording time,
perfect. I'm jealous about because we condense ours so tight.
Yeah.
That you never get to actually like delve into anything. Everything's like very quick and surface level. So on a visit back to the UK when I was maybe 14 years old or 15, I met randomly an actress named Dame Judi Dench, and we exchanged information very quickly, and I said, I want to be an actor. I want to get into film, whatever. Kept in touch. She recommended a film school in Los Angeles to go to called the New York Film Academy, but they have a campus in LA.
Okay.
So on the flight from, you go Fort McMurray to Edmonton, then Edmonton to LA. On that leg of Edmonton to Los Angeles, I sat next to an actor so randomly named Corbin Burnson from LA Law and Psych and Major League. Like he's done a bunch of stuff. I had no idea who he was, but he was reading a movie script and we got chatting. And on the flight, I started explaining to him like my home life is not a good situation. Like it's an abusive household. Yeah. And I'm going to LA and I'm going to become an actor and I'm going to escape and run away basically. And he's like, well, go down to LA, do your film school, do your whatever, vacation in LA for the summer or whatnot. But then when you come back, I'm filming a movie in a small town in Alberta called Provost. So if you want to come back up, I'll hire you to work on the movie with me. So I did. I went to LA, came back, showed up in Provost, and the first lady that I met on the set was the executive producer. And so we filmed in this super small, isolated town, in like dead of winter now at this point, like when the movie's shot. And then it's done and I'm sitting in my Cobalt and Lisa came up and is like, so what's your plan? What are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know. I got $2,000 and a car. Like the world is mine. And she said, my husband and I, if you want to come stay with us for a little bit, like we've got the resources and we'll take you in to figure things out. And then that turned into her adopting me. So, yeah.
Wild.
Crazy.
Like a bunch of circumstances that should never like really play out.
No, because I didn't even get into the film school when I first applied. And so I emailed Judi Dench and I'm like, hey, thank you so much for recommending this. I didn't get in, unfortunately. I needed recommendation letters and a letter from a drama teacher in Fort McMurray doesn't cut it in LA. Mm-hmm. So she intervened and got me a place in the class, and so that would have never happened. Then I would have never been flying down there. Yep. So it was like the perfect storm of just random occurrences. So
why do you think that is? Why do you ever give it any thought of? It sounds like you had a tough childhood.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden, to have these random experiences that allow you to kind of get on this path? Like, is it your ability to connect with people? Is it?
I mean, maybe that's.
Is it your heart on your sleeve? Is it just like there's something?
It's such a weird thing to think about in terms of myself.
Yeah.
You're probably, yeah, probably. Because I mean, I'm not shy. I'll answer anything or say anything when people ask about it. And Corbin and I just hit it off just got talking on the plane, just about life. And I was a kid as well. So I was probably oversharing.
Yeah.
And he has since the show has grown and stuff, I've heard, Corbin talk about it and stuff and say how he felt compelled and all of these different, and so it was just the perfect storm of just good energy, I think. And then, and that which directly ties into getting the talk show.
Yeah.
Because one of the actors on that film set, I'm name dropping so much, but Lawrence Pressman, he was one of the actors on that movie in Provost, and we've kept in touch daily, weekly for 11 or 12 years, more than that. My God, it's so much longer than that now, almost 15 years. And he helped get the talk show going initially when I had the idea for it.
Crazy.
So, yeah.
You want to go back to the Fort McMurray days? You want to go back
Sure.
there? And
Yeah, of course.
I'd love to hear just why you came, why you came to Fort Mac. I'd love to hear, obviously, I don't want just what was going on, what you were interested in, what school was like, and like if it was.
Well, I was 5, so I didn't have any say in the move there.
Yep.
But we were. My dad got some kind of a job, which, in hindsight, looking at the lifestyle that we lived in Fort McMurray for those early formative years, I don't think it was worth moving across the world for that kind of a lifestyle that we had in Fort McMurray. There wasn't an oil job or anything like that. Like we lived, there was no money. And I think people are always shocked now when I say that. Like my earliest memories in the UK, in Fort McMurray, like low income housing, food stamps, like extreme poverty. And it wasn't until my biological mom made money in the Fort McMurray real estate game, just selling they bought a house for a really small amount of money in the mid 90s. And then when that sold in the early 2000s, it sold for, several hundreds of thousands of dollars more.
Yep.
But yeah, it was interesting. I think Fort McMurray gets a bad rap sometimes. It's the one thing that not the one thing. One of the many things it has is a sense of community that you don't realize unless you live there and you grow up there. And it's different for the people that fly in, work, and then fly out. Like there's this total shadow population up there of just transient workers that work in the camps and at the oil sands up there. But the people that live there full time, you're so isolated. There's one road in, one road out. You're 4 hours, 5 hours, whatever it is from Edmonton, and nothing in between. So everybody knows everybody, and you really do get this sense of community. But it was my home. I consider it, even though I was born in the UK, I consider Fort McMurray my hometown.
Yep.
My first job was up there. I graduated there.
What was your first job, by the way?
My first job was at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Which I think everybody should work at a McDonald's or do something. If you have time to lean, you have time to clean. So. It was good. I worked a bunch of random jobs. I got fired for one of the only 2 times in my life I've been fired. One of them was in Fort McMurray at the Greyhound bus depot.
Wait.
Yeah.
Were you sleeping?
No. God, they take it so seriously. So, I mean, it was this little tiny... It was just this warehouse building, and I was the ticket agent, and they take it so seriously that this family came in and they were just so flustered trying to figure this out, and they had missed the cutoff time by like 2 seconds, and the owner wouldn't let me sell them a ticket. He's like, nope, tell them the gate's closed. I'm like, well, first of all, there's no gate. It's a door to the parking lot with a bus that you were driving. And you're not on it yet, so they have time to get on it. And so I had it was getting out of hand, and I just made a comment saying, let's not lose our heads over this. But it was maybe a week after someone did lose their head on a Greyhound bus.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Timing.
So, Yeah, I moved on to Staples.
The community up there. Like, I'm assuming everyone knows who the locals are. Who, not the shadow population, and it's tight.
Yeah.
Like tight group of kids the same age that kind of are up to the same things. Like,
Kind of. There's 3 high schools, or there was it's been a long time since I was up there, but when I was up there were 3 high schools, and you know everybody in your school.
Yep.
And your high school is dependent on what neighborhood you're in. Depends what high school you go to.
Yep.
And so then everybody kind of lives in the same neighborhood, and everybody goes to the same school, and there's only one Walmart, one Superstore, one, I don't even know if they had a Safeway, one ski hill, and one movie theater. It was very insular. So you just, everybody knew everybody. And
Yeah, I have no, I'm born and raised here. So like, I just haven't felt that, like, the one street, the one hub of something. And I just don't know if it's, do you make like real lifelong connections because it's so tight, or is it,
No. And that's something that's really interesting for me, particularly because when I got adopted,
14?
By the time the process was done, I was 19.
Okay.
But it takes many years to get this process done. So it started we started the process when I had just turned 17, I think, formally starting the process of it. But it was like hitting a light switch when that happened. My family that was up there was like their choice, my biological mom's choice. Like, it was like she flipped a light switch and all ties were cut. I have never heard from my grandparents since, like, biological, and there was no explanation, no anything. I've just never heard from them ever again. So there's kind of this, I'm 30, and there's this point, like, quite almost right now at the midway point through my life, where there was like the before and the after, and there's very few people, I'm talking like 2 or 3 from before that I still have any contact with, and then everybody else is like a maximum time frame of maybe 15 years that I've known people. So I don't know. That's a concept I can't comprehend with like grandparents and cousins and siblings, like knowing people that you were a baby with and growing up with as a little kid to now. I don't have that frame of reference. Yeah,
that's a different way. It's different experiences.
Totally. Yeah. I don't know what that feels like, because obviously I have somewhere on the planet grandparents from like biological grandparents won't speak to me. Won't. Interesting, eh?
Very. And I think what'll be interesting, it'll remain interesting too for the rest of your life. Just, you have such a different perspective, and I think you're going to get in some very interesting conversations with people that they'd be like, no way, and they've gone through something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I thought about it actually the other day. I was thinking, like, we're coming up in the next year or two, we'll be coming up on the point in time where I will have known my adopted family and people that are in my life now for longer than I will have known my biological mom and my biological dad. And like that group, we're coming up to the time where I will have been alive longer without them than with them. So
what is that?
It's almost like hitting a benchmark, like a milestone, I think. And then it's kind of, because I don't miss them, so it's kind of So it's to me it's like, okay, well, we've made it. We've gone longer without them than with them, or we've gone right. So it's
must give you some energy to keep going forward too, right? You're like, this is the way. There's no hesitation. There's no like what if and looking back. It's like, this is it.
Yeah, it's definitely
What's going on in high school? Junior high school. What are you up to? Are you?
Oh God, I was so popular. No. Just kidding. I definitely was not.
Working a bunch of jobs?
I worked. I love working.
Yep.
I got my first job at McDonald's when I was 14. And then I worked consistently pretty much until COVID.
Yep.
Always had a full-time job,
Right.
at least minimum of one, at times 2 or 3 jobs. Fort McMurray is just, I was 14 years old working at McDonald's making $18 an hour in like grade 9.
Yeah.
So it was a good opportunity.
Yep.
And I had the best scam ever. I would work the drive-through in the dead of winter, and people, this is before tap and before everybody, like this is back in the cash days, and people would drive through and they'd order a coffee or their meal or whatever, and they'd pay with a $20 bill. I'd give them the cash portion back from the till, but I would then just pretend to, with their hand, I'm like, oh, and here's your change, and like be stumbling to get the change out of the rolls. And more times than not, they would be so cold, they would say, just keep it. So then my till would have a surplus, which I would cash out like for myself. So then I was making like $30 an hour.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And the constant drive to work, was that just a necessary thing, or was that just you had a work ethic in you and you needed to like stand on your own 2 feet?
It was something to do because it's not, there's nothing to do up at the time.
Yep.
There was nothing to do up there. I'm not athletic. I know it's hard to tell by my chiseled physique, but I did not do sports. I was not out, playing basketball or baseball.
Yep.
I wasn't really into the arts and culture scene either.
Yep.
So then the only thing to do is work.
Yep.
Like you go stir crazy up there.
Yep.
So
So after high school, so you're 17, I guess?
So graduated a year early.
Yep.
With the bare minimum, and then took off to Vancouver. Yeah.
Did you know, like, grade 10, grade 11 that you wanted out? Like, was there this push to get out of there as fast as you could, or what was the...
Yeah, it was... I mean, the home life didn't help. So my mom was very... I don't even know what the word to religious, let's say. So just not a good situation. So yeah, and Vancouver seemed like the closest big city that it was reasonable to get. Like I could get it, I could pack my car and drive there and make it to Vancouver.
Yep.
And I did. And yeah.
Did you know anybody there?
No.
So it's a big move, right? So walk me through this. So you just graduated early.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm out of here, going to Vancouver.
Yep.
Don't know anybody.
Yep.
My Cobalt can get me there.
Yep. You know what? That's a lie. There was somebody that I had met doing a play, like a theater show in Fort McMurray, and they were from Vancouver. So I met them just like in passing doing this play. And that's who I reached out to immediately before I left. And I said, is there any way I can stay with you while I look for a place to rent in Vancouver? So it's not true that I didn't know anyone there. I did know someone, and she said, sure.
That the play in Fort Mac, was drama like the theatrical side of you? Like were you was that a thing, like a part of your being? Were you want to be on stage?
It was more the being able to step into someone else's life and step out of my own life. Because if you're playing a character or playing a role, or you're acting or kind of embodying someone else, and you've got their background and their story and their family and everything that's going on with that character, it meant I wasn't in my own situation. So for me, it was a nice form of escapism. And it took me a long time to realize that, because I'm much happier on the corporate side of the industry than I am on the in front of the camera side. But looking back, I realized that was my escape, like doing a theater show. Like, I mean, I would have, it was just my way to become someone else. And then you're so focused as well that you've got all your lines and you've got to be in the moment, and you're creating this character and this world that you have no choice but to solely, everything else just goes away for that, 90 minutes or 2 hours or however long the show is, or when you're in rehearsals or when you're doing whatever. Did
you get into that from a young age? Like into the acting side?
I did church play, Yeah, like I didn't. It just kind of I stumbled into it, kind of. Yeah, and I think that was the like the comfort with it was the driving factor.
Yep.
So
So Vancouver, big change. Showing up, no one person. So what happens when you get there? What are you thinking when you get there?
well, I go to university. God, it was so. I went to university and I did find a place to rent pretty quick. It was just fun. It was like figuring things out like really, really fast. Like, I mean, you're living in the big city all of a sudden. Like from Fort McMurray, it's so isolated to all of a sudden you're in this big city.
Yep.
Ran out of money within like 2 weeks and had to find a job. And
So what was that job?
That job was working at a clothing store.
Okay.
Like a little menswear boutique.
Yep.
Yeah, selling clothes. Yeah.
Did that like the retail side, the retail game? Obviously, you need like you have to be able to read a room face to face. You got to talk to people. You got to like upsell them and no.
It is not I'm not meant to work customer service.
Just
not meant to do it.
So how long did you last there?
I stuck it out till I moved. Yeah.
Oh, so you were there.
Yeah, I was there for 2 years in
Okay.
Vancouver before I came to Calgary. And yeah, no, I stuck it out and I did it. In fact, the lady that owned that store, Christine, we still are very good friends. She lives in Mexico City now, and so I've gone down to visit with her, and we keep in touch. And so it's interesting how you meet these people so randomly, and then looking back and seeing who's still in your life and who isn't. So
And just
I hope this is interesting.
Oh, dude, this is like
I'm so sorry if you're bored.
What's interesting is you seem to, we're early in this story, but you have these moments in time where you just come across people that create major impact in your life.
There's a handful of people that I met so randomly that entirely changed the course of my existence. And were it not for some people, I don't know if I would even still be here. And then were it, let's say I think about it all the time. Had I not randomly met Judi Dench and been so brazen to get her contact info, you know who she is. Had I not been so brazen as a kid to say, "What's your email?" and then she gave it to me.
Like, oh.
In fairness, we were stuck in so there's this thing in York called York Minster, which is this big cathedral, and I was there with my uncle, and we were in line. You could like go up this spiral staircase to like get to the roof or a lookout point or something. And there was somebody who was larger in a wheelchair, whatever, and they were trying to figure out how to get them up the stairs so that they could see it. And so we were stuck in line, like waiting for like 45 minutes. And my uncle, and she was standing in line behind us with whoever she was there with. So it was but again, like perfect storm. And then if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have met Corbin. And had Corbin not been compelled, his word, so, in whatever means that is to intervene, it's scary actually to think about how things would have gone a different way had that not been for him. And so Corbin, he really did take my life and put it in a 90-degree turn on it. So
Such a random experience.
Yeah.
Where were you taking university in Vancouver?
Communications. Yeah.
Random? Like, did it fit? Like, it felt like you wanted to?
I didn't know what I knew that I wanted to do something in entertainment, but I didn't want to go get a BFA because I think that is useless. And the way that I was thinking was, okay, a communications degree with a minor in marketing or business or whatever, at least it gives me some kind of a backup plan. Yep. I dropped out of my last semester, so it was a total waste of 4 3/4 years of my life.
Why'd you drop out?
Yeah, I got a job offer to work on a TV show.
Here.
Yeah. So we're actually just right now in the process of, because I'm 1 semester away from the degree.
Yep.
And it's a degree in communications, and I mass communicate on an international scale, 40 hours a week. And so I've gone back to them, and we are in the process, right? I just paid the fee for it this morning. We're in the process right now to see, can we apply what I've done to the missing courses as work experience and then grant the degree.
Interesting.
It's a degree in communications. I've proven that I can apply.
You can communicate?
I can communicate.
Well, that's going to be really interesting.
So, yeah. And it's not an honorary degree. It'll be a real degree.
Yep.
And, if Sue, if you are watching this, please make it work.
Thank you, Sue.
Yeah. Sue Dritmanis at Capilano University.
Cringing.
No pressure.
So how does that work? So how did you get a job offer? And like when you did get the offer to come here to shoot something.
Oh, I left out, sorry. At the beginning of my third year, I transferred to U of C to Calgary because my mom's, so Lisa, when I reference my mom, I mean my adopted mom.
Yep.
Her husband at the time ran an oil company in Calgary.
Okay.
And growing up in Fort McMurray and earning the kind of money I did as a kid, and then all of a sudden you're in Vancouver where everything costs 10 times as much for, a 1/10 of the space.
Yep.
And I'm all of a sudden earning like $10 an hour working retail. And her husband at the time said, we have summer student positions, we have part-time positions, like you can come work here and you can make real money if you want to work at the oil company, but you got to go to university in Calgary. So done. Packed up my car and moved to Calgary. So then it was so random. I met this talent agent at a party one night here in Calgary. And I told her that I had wanted to be an actor once upon a time and I had all this experience. And, she's like, oh, you should do it. You should. I'm like, no, I've got an oil job now. Like, I'm good. I'm set for the rest of my life. This company it quickly went downhill. And so I said to her, I'll do one audition. If I book it, I'm in. I'll give it my all. If I don't, though, I'm not playing this game forever because I know so few people do it.
Yep.
And she sent me on an audition and I booked the role. And then I'm like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing. And then that led to something else. And then eventually this opportunity for a show came up as a series regular with a 5-year deal on a scripted series. But it was like, you're going to have to drop out of university for this, to do this. And I did. And the show ended up being it was a Star Trek spinoff.
Okay.
Filming here in Calgary / Vulcan. And we filmed the pilot. I'd already dropped out at that point and waited months. And then we started filming. And it turns out they didn't have the rights to make a Star Trek spinoff. And so that also fell. But then I had already left university and I'm like, okay, well now I'm out in the world and I'm doing things. I don't need to go back. And yeah. Yeah.
It's like
I do kind of just go wherever seems like there's an opportunity, perhaps. Sometimes works out, sometimes doesn't.
Yeah. Is that now that you can look back on these experiences, have you always known that? Or now that you can connect all these dots, now that you've experienced these things, you're like, okay.
I can just connect it. Now I can look back and see. Because at the time it feels like it's life-changing. Like this is going to be the big, I've had so many in my mind Oscar-worthy performances and big breaks and that are just not when I look back. Yeah. I realize how ridiculous the opportunity is. But yeah, I mean, I think you have to just, I don't know how to phrase this. It's like if you have a chance to try something new or meet someone or go somewhere or do something or experience something, do it. I went to Dubai randomly. I don't know, and on a whim, hey, you want to go to Dubai? Sure, let's go to Dubai. Let's go to Abu Dhabi. Let's do it. And that turned into an around the world trip out of nowhere. And I think you just have to seize opportunity as it comes.
Do you think that's that terrifies me? That idea of doing that.
Going to Dubai?
Yeah.
Oh, it's my favorite city in the world. Yeah, I could be their spokesperson. I mean, they're never going to hire a gay person from Canada to be their spokesperson. But if they did, I would do it because I have nothing bad to say about Dubai.
That the ability to say yes and experience it and just go. You got to be wired differently. You say it so easily because it's easily.
Yeah.
It's like a natural move for you.
Yeah.
And it makes sense of how doors open and close and you get exposed to a bunch of different things. But
I just get very bored very quickly. So I like to constantly be moving and having, and I've self submitted. It's just like, am I ADD? Do I have ADHD? And it's like, nope, you don't check. Like, it's, I don't know. It's just this, like, I get bored so quickly. I'm wanting to try new things all the time. And like, I just want to, if the end of the year comes and I feel like when I look back on the year and it's like, wow, there was like a 2-month stretch where I wasn't really working and I wasn't really doing anything, but then I didn't travel, it feels like a wasted opportunity. Or if I didn't go and try to build something or try to make something or try to meet someone or try to go somewhere. It feels like the notion of wasted time just drives me crazy. And there's nothing existential or anything about it. Like I've never had anyone close to me. That's not true. But it wasn't a driving factor like losing someone from a death or whatnot. But it's nothing like that. It's just like you only have time as your only finite resource. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I'm all over the place.
this is great though. That's why this format is wide open for this.
What was the girl's name that does the edit? Becky?
Emma.
Emma. Yeah, sorry, Emma. This is we're all over the place.
So when you come to Calgary, a fairly like big change.
It was September. September of 2014, because I went back to Provost to work in their field office for the summer for the oil company. Then I came to Calgary. September 2014, I will never forget, because I moved here and I was getting settled in, and I woke up the next morning and there was an absolute blizzard.
That was that snowstorm.
That was that big
Like
September
when all
snowstorm.
the trees broke and craziness.
That was my first weekend in Calgary in September.
Good move.
Yeah, and I was like, I will never forget texting Christine, who owned the store in West Van, a picture of the snowstorm outside, and she texted me back a picture of her and one of the other workers at the store sitting outside on the like ocean front having a tea, saying, "Do you regret it?" I have many regrets right now.
Yeah, it happens here. So what else is going on here when you get here? So drop out of university. The acting thing, like you just kind of slid it in there. Was it when you went to Vancouver?
Did nothing.
Did nothing. There. So this random.
I tried to be an extra on 50 Shades of Grey because I thought that would be a funny movie to be an extra on, and I didn't even book it as an extra. So
it was there. There's kind of this underlying interest that you just kind of, it was there, but you didn't really push it.
Well, I got to Calgary and realized I had no friends here, and it was and at this point now Lisa, like my mom, and her now ex-husband had just separated. So they are starting divorce proceedings. So we're kind of in this limbo of like the adoption is not finalized yet. She's going through a divorce. I'm now in a new city and I moved here for a job that I'm probably going to lose because they're going through a divorce. And I don't know anybody at school. I'm going into my third year of a program in a new university where all the friend groups are already formed and I don't know anybody. And I didn't know at the time, but looking back, when I met that agent at the party and we started talking about it, it was this overwhelming sense of, okay, comfort, I can do this. This is what I can go be someone else and be happy, because now this is like overwhelming all of a sudden. Let me go be someone else for a little bit. And yeah, it's like this comforting thing.
Those are a lot of big changes. Like a lot of changes, a lot of in your own head.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Is it just time? You were okay to sit in it and work through it and just like keep going forward?
Oh, no, I went like totally off the rails.
You did?
At the time. Yeah, I was like, the only thing I didn't have was like the group of friends, but like I was out every single night. Like if there was a bar in Calgary, I have been to it, like as a high school or university student. And like there was no, I didn't have a base. I didn't have people that I graduated with that I was in university with, because I left high school a year early, so I didn't go through the graduation process. I left high school the year early and I went to Vancouver. And then the friends that I made there, not lost, but like they're not here in Calgary, and then it's like hard to break into these. So, yeah,
You were wandering.
always, yeah.
So what happens after this Vulcan thing? So that all blows up. You're out of university.
Out of university, and then I started booking work. Like I did acts. Like I booked roles on different things. Like really tiny roles on big projects and really big roles on small projects. But if the check cashed, I would take the work.
Going. So you had an agent?
I did.
So you were kind of all in on the acting world.
Yeah. And then when the NDP government came in and kind of tax credits changed and filming opportunity, things seemed to dry up a little bit. And at this point, I'm now in my early 20s.
Yep.
And so I got my real estate license.
Okay. So...
Also at the same time, my ex-partner and I had met someone, and we decided we were going to buy a house. But I had the money. I didn't have the steady income to qualify for a mortgage.
Yep.
He did. I did not, but I had all the money saved up for a down payment.
Okay.
So then it was like trying to figure out. We ended up buying a house in this little village called Alberta Beach, which is about an hour west of Edmonton. Beach is definitely like a loose term for what that is. It's 2 streets of houses on a body of like a pond. Yeah.
But you're living in Calgary and you bought a place up there?
Yeah. So now I'm living in Alberta Beach.
And then you decided to become a realtor?
Yep. I took the course sitting in that living room.
So what's the awesome. How do you why did you go to a realtor? What was the push to go that way?
The honest answer, somebody told me, I met someone, again, just out randomly in Edmonton one night, who told me that getting your real estate license is like getting a license to print money. And no bigger lie have I ever been told, but I'm like, sure, I could do that. I can sell. I like houses. I love real estate. Yep. I'm not going back to university. Yeah.
Realtor. So did you get it?
Of course I did.
Okay. And so how long did you work? So you're living in Alberta Beach as a realtor. And how long? And then how long are you doing this?
Well, so we then broke up. So I moved back to Calgary.
Okay.
And so I really started my real estate career in Calgary.
Yep.
The first year was horrible. I worked my ass off and made $11,000. So that sucked. And then by year 2, I was making like really good money. And then, like kind of decided like, okay, maybe I'm my own boss. I'm running a business, kind of running a business. I'm my own boss, making really good money, setting my own hours. I can take, if I want to take 2 months off, I can take 2 months off. If I want to, if I need more money, I can just work harder and earn more money. And there's no limit to my income. And that's what I did. I started getting rental properties, and I started getting like Airbnbs, and like trying to get like, let's have 10 Airbnb properties around the city, and let's do, like, I went all in on it. Still doing the occasional acting audition, like still have my agent, still, kind of one foot kind of in that world. But it was so focused on real estate. And then COVID came. And then all of a sudden in March of 2020, I had multiple rental properties that I owned for Airbnb. I had 27 listings on the market as a realtor. I was like in the process of starting a team. Things were really, really good. And by April, I had 3 listings. All of my rentals were shut down. You couldn't do Airbnbs in the city anymore, and the buildings themselves started banning them. So I saddled with all of these properties. I had no income. It was very quickly, everything shuts in, and it was not good.
Yep.
And then the show came. Yeah.
What when you're like that kind of trauma, it's trauma, right? Like it is.
Oh yeah, I've gone to like I don't think many people know this. In Alberta, you can go to therapy. I have seen a therapist consistently since 2017, and you don't have to pay for it here. Like a real, like what is a therapist or psychologist or psychiatrist, whichever one can write the prescriptions.
Yeah.
Yet it's covered under Alberta Health Services, certain ones. So like you can go, and so all the time. I go to see a therapist all the time, and it's free. And I always say, if it's free, it's for me. So
That's a good slogan. What it all comes, everything kind of falls apart. COVID and. So what's your?
I was so depressed. I was ready to I could not. It's my biggest fear, because I really do think a lot of not in like a sad self-deprecating way. I just really do have this fear that I'm always going. I will never have that long-term, not a romantic relationship, but just those long-term relations with people. The pattern has been like you hit, a certain point, and then they just, it falls apart for it. And my own fault a lot of the time, because I can write people off very easily and not lose sleep over it. It's a really bad character trait that I have. But my biggest fear is I'm going to end up being, 70 years old one day and be sitting with no friends or no people that I can look back on and say, oh, we went through this and this and this together or whatever.
Yep.
So when COVID came, all of a sudden you are locked down. You can't go anywhere. You can't see anyone. You can't do anything. And it really was all of my biggest fears combined. The isolation, the abandonment, the claustrophobia of being stuck in the house, everything I didn't care about COVID. I wasn't scared of getting COVID. I wasn't scared of any of that kind of stuff. It was the situation around it. It was all of my biggest fears. And I had basically gotten to the point where if this stays like this, I'm checking out. So however that comes to be, will come to be. And like when I say it was like my lowest point, it really was my April 2020. It was scary to think back at the mindset I was in.
That's a short time ago too, right?
Yeah,
it's not that.
It's not that long ago.
It's not a lifetime ago.
No.
So what was your turning point there? When you get to those kind of depths, obviously there's like a couple of choices.
Yeah. So I had a conversation with Larry from the movie that I met in Provost, where I met Lisa. And do you remember during that early COVID lockdown days, everybody's on,
some crazy construction. Like honestly, there's some giant machines like 20 feet in front of us.
I'm so used to stopping on the show when there's noise like that.
This is
but that's what we just keep going through it.
We're gone.
Okay.
Thank you, Emma.
Yeah. So when everybody, like Miley Cyrus and everybody was on Instagram doing those Instagram live talk shows and like connecting with people, I was like, okay, if they're doing, I'm like, I know enough people that I can do this. This will be something I can do, something I can talk to people. I can have interactions with people. Like I'm sitting, because for a lot of people, when COVID happened and they're working from home, they're still working and they're set up and they're talking to their colleagues. They're talking to people weren't buying and selling houses in those early days of real estate. And I was a team of one. And so again, you're like totally cut off from everything. And, and Lisa works in healthcare. So she would, I would call her 20 times a day, but now all of a sudden, so like everything is just very quiet.
Yep.
And so I called Larry and I said, I'm going to do this social media talk show. Will you come on it and be a guest? And he said, I just finished a show for Amazon called Transparent. If you ever heard of that show that was on Amazon with Jeffrey, I can't remember his last name. But anyway, Larry was on the show. And he's like, Amazon needs content and studios need content. This is going to be bad for the industry. So he gave me the name of someone to contact. This was on Monday. By Friday, I had signed a deal with Amazon to somehow I was going to create and deliver an entire season of a talk show that they would air on Amazon Prime. and we were going to film it in my living room in Calgary. We would do the interviews remotely. And all of a sudden, I had signed a contract to have a talk show.
It doesn't seem possible, does it?
It was
Like,
again, if I wasn't so messed up and like just say yes to everything. If I actually took a minute to think about things before I did them, I don't think I wouldn't end up in half the situations I ended up in. Wouldn't have had that godforsaken house. Wouldn't have had
blessing and a curse.
It was just a curse. It was, yeah. Anyway, he's stuck with it now. So good luck with that money pit.
So how does an Amazon show out of your living room?
So
It's insane.
the people that filmed that horrible Star Trek spin, like not that made it,
Yep.
the production crew and who owned the studio and owned all the camera equipment and owned all the lighting, like the actual service producers on the show, the director and the cinematographer and stuff, I called them because it's the only people I could think of in Calgary that had the infrastructure to do this. And I called. And it took forever and like many, many phone calls. And then finally Candace called me back. She's like, we're in the middle of, like nothing's filming, nothing's happening. What's going on? And I'm like, well, I've got a contract from Amazon and I need to come up with, I've got a contract, a very small budget, and I need to make a television show. And I'm wondering if we can do it in your studio, which they no longer even had. So that's how then all of a sudden we're filming in my living room and they... Yeah, like we had jumped off the cliff and we were sewing the parachute as we were falling.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is based on having conversations.
Yes.
With
no COVID, no religion,
Yeah.
no politics, which we can touch on that in a bit. I called it face-to-face with David because I thought if we're doing it on Zoom or Skype or FaceTime, however we were virtually doing it, I wanted it to feel... for the kind of like exactly this format. I wanted the audience to feel like they were just tuning in to a casual conversation between two people.
Yep.
And I remember from doing that acting course in LA, we had done this exercise where you had to do your scene and, go through the motions of the scene. And then when they replayed it for the class to watch, they muted it. And you had to still... It had to be visually interesting so that if there was no sound, you could still get some kind of an idea of what the scene was, whether you were right or wrong. And that always stuck with me, that it's not just the content, it's the visuals have to be interesting. Yep. So that's how I landed on, I'm going to wear a Versace bathrobe and I'm going to drink boxed wine. And I'm going to be on one half of the screen and the other half of the screen will be a famous person. And if you're flipping through television channels or going through the boxes on a streaming service, it's going to look so outrageous that hopefully you will click on it and watch it. And so I messaged, I sent, I can't remember how it came to be, but there were a few people that followed me on Instagram.
Yep.
Two of them being Carson Kressley from RuPaul's Drag Race and Perez Hilton. And I messaged both of them and I said, listen, I've got this talk show for Amazon. We're filming it in my living room. Will you be a guest? And Carson Kressley was the first person to say yes. And then Perez said yes. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit, we have credibility.
Hold that. How do they know about you before all this?
I think Carson Kressley started following me because I sent him like videos on, I met him and I followed him.
Yep.
And then I had sent him like videos on a private jet one day or something. And he wrote back saying something like, this is ridiculous. And then followed me. Yeah.
So just
totally random.
obscure.
Totally random. And then Lisa suggested, she's like, oh, I just saw this lady perform in Lloydminster called Deborah DiGiovanni, a comedian. You should ask her if she'll be on it. So message her. She said yes. And then all of a sudden we've got like a lineup of guests,
yep.
of celebrities, and then like a few people from the movie in Provost, and Corbin wasn't available.
What was the hook? What was your like show description? Face to face with David, having conversations about...
I'm going to wear a Versace bathrobe and drink wine, and I'm going to have a conversation with you about your career and it's going to be evergreen, and we're not nothing current events, and it's going to be evergreen content, and people are going to watch this forever. Yeah.
Crazy.
Also, I think part of it, no disrespect to any of the guests, because obviously I'm eternally grateful to them. There was no work in Hollywood at that time. Everything was shut down. So it was like, this is an opportunity to film something and be on TV that's going to air during COVID. Like, it's something to do.
Yep.
And yeah.
Timing.
Yeah.
Like,
and also what's interesting is I reached out to almost every single network that I could think of in Canada and pitched them on the idea. And every single person said, this will not work. There's no way this is going to, no one's going to watch this. Then we premiered. So this is in April, signed the deal.
yep.
June, we filmed.
Okay.
July, we premiered on Amazon, only in select countries. You can't replicate what happened. It's the middle of the summer. Ellen's in her big scandal. No shows are filming. Carson Kressley is our first guest. Amazon had the rights to one of the seasons of RuPaul's Drag Race or something like that. And because he was our first guest, when people would watch RuPaul's Drag Race, whatever season or spinoff that was on Prime Video, it would then recommend Face to Face with David as a new show to watch in the little box in the corner of the screen. And all of a sudden, we're like trending on Amazon Prime, and we have a 5-star rating, and people are like watching it. And all of a sudden I wake up and I have 10,000 Instagram followers where I had like 200 the day before. And like my Facebook page, because they put it in like really obscure countries around the world where Facebook is still, but like I have now like 150,000 followers on Facebook. I don't use Facebook, but there are countries around the world that only use Facebook.
They still use it.
And I get messages from people in language, like I have to copy and paste into Google Translate and then like triple check that my reply back makes some kind of sense. Usually it's a thumbs up, but because I have no idea what they're saying. But it was so random. And then we decided to do a second season. And everything's great, and we're doing a second season. It's a bigger season, and it's going to be great. And like we're putting way more money into this, and the stakes are bigger, and we got huge guests.
Living room still?
No, now that was the one thing I said I will never ever do again. I will never ever film anything in my house ever again. So then we signed a deal with the Fairmont to film in the Fairmont hotels. So we're at the Palliser filming. Everything goes great. Everything's amazing. Somehow, for different reasons, Amazon decides we're not going to air the second season. We're not going to carry the second season.
And you've already had like mid-production.
We had an air date announced.
Oh, so you were.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it was like, oh shit, what do I do? And then I just, out of the blue one day, called back. I called one of the networks and I said, hey, look at how, kind of like, I just felt really defiant. And I called back and I was like, look how well you didn't want to take this show. Look how well we did. Just rubbing it in your face kind of. And all of a sudden we'd be very interested in taking this. And then another network, then another network, then another network. And all of a sudden we're getting offers from all of these people to carry the show. And then we're going into a third season. And by the way, a lot of these networks air their content on Amazon. So we ended up, now we're on Amazon under like 4 different brands. So, and then the ball started. And now we're 56 countries. So.
Insane. What's the, it all started digital, right? It was all remote.
It still is.
Still. Will you not do?
It just costs so much money to fly guests in.
Yeah.
And right now we don't pay our guests anything.
Yep.
And so it would like increase the costs exponentially.
Yep.
We've done a few in-person. In fact, Mayor Gondek was the first in-person segment interview thing because we're here in Calgary. It's like, let's see what it's like being the mayor of a city. She was our first on location we had done on location things in the past where I had gone and done, that's kind of like how that was born. Was I had done a shift working as a housekeeper at a hotel. I had done a shift as a concierge. I had like, oh, let's put me in different jobs where I can just be an idiot and make it kind of funny. And yeah, I thought, well, what about being the mayor? And I remember like talking to her team, and I'm like, well, what if I was the mayor for a day? And they're like, absolutely not, but we can do something for a day. Yeah.
But it's a creative idea, right?
Yeah.
Is it just...
And that was so much fun. That was such a fun day. We became friends out of that. Yeah.
And just you just brainstorming, just coming up with, just being, like, what, to even go down that path? What gave you that inner strength to even think about?
Well, I kept seeing her popping up on different things, and I wanted to get to know her anyway. And so then it was, having a television show is a really great icebreaker when you want to meet people. So I wanted to just kind of see, like, what's she about? Like, this is, like, she seems pretty cool. Like, she doesn't look like a stuffy politician. Like, she looks like she's always dressed cool and funky and, like, speaks well and looks like a good time. Mm-hmm. And so, reached out. They said yes. And so, we showed up and no idea what to expect. And it was, we showed up in where did we go? We started at C Space in Marda Loop and walked in. So I had met her team and obviously our film crew and stuff. We rode to C Space. Mayor is already there. And we walked in, and I'm standing at the back. Just, they had again, if it's free, it's for me. And they had an all-you-can-eat buffet. I'm like, this is already, the day is off to a win.
I'm here.
So I just remember, like, stuffing my face with food, and I made eye contact with her on the other side, and she just big smile and a wave, and then we spent the day together filming, and it was really cool to see. I find municipal politics boring, and I don't. It's not anything that interests me.
Yep.
I'm very passionate about politics, just not municipal level. And it was so much fun, and it was not what I expected at all. And I don't have a single critical thing to say about Mayor Gondek. I am her biggest champion and her biggest cheerleader, because she is, so as you probably find with having this platform, as your platform grows, a lot of times people come to you with what can you do for them? And how can you help them? How can you, build them up or elevate them or whatever. And the thing I found interesting with Mayor Gondek is she comes at it from the opposite. It's consistently, how can I, as the mayor, as a person, as a mom, as a friend, as a neighbor, how can I help you to make you feel safe, comfortable, having fun, make sure you're having a good time. She's always, I've known her now for, like, we text, and we've gone for dinner, and we became friends. And it's consistently, how can she help you? What can she do to help you? And I really like that. And I think that's strong leadership.
Do you try and take that kind of lesson or those learnings into your own life?
No, but I should. Just
because it takes that approach takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
To be that selfless.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
No, she is, she's great. And she's a great Special. Woman. Yeah. And I think it's unfortunate. Like, it's not like she inherited a city in perfect condition. Like, there's climate concerns, unemployment, homelessness issues. There's, like, economic, so she was dealt maybe not the best hand to start with. So I think, and she just powers on and keeps going and doesn't get dismayed by anything. Yep. And what's interesting too, I went through something really bad in Christmas of last year. Like, I saw the worst of humanity, I think. And she was one of the first people that I told, but also one of the only people that didn't want the story, didn't want the gossip, didn't want the first question was, how can I make you feel safe now that you're back in Calgary? And I think that is very telling. So anyway, sorry. Now this has turned into a Jyoti Gondek,
friends going,
thing, but it's, she's great.
You gotta celebrate.
I'm sending her this.
Obviously.
You should get her on this podcast.
Well, that'd be interesting.
Yeah. Would you have her on?
Yeah, I'd have to,
she's Calgary.
Artist, entrepreneur, athlete.
She's
does she
an
own her own-
artist. She's a fashionista.
Well, she is.
Yeah.
She's a stylish human for sure.
Yeah.
We could see if we could. There might be an exception to the rule.
Yeah.
You've been on a rise in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
You know, like, was it 3 years?
Mm-hmm.
3 years in?
Mm-hmm.
Does it catch you off guard?
Yeah.
Do you think about this much? Are you just now?
If I could go back in time and never do it, I would hit that reset button.
No way.
Yeah. It's the best and worst thing that has ever happened.
Why?
That I could imagine happening to someone. It's the pros are so intense, but the negatives are so intense that there are a lot of days where I don't think it was worth it. Or at least how I've handled it or what I've done that I don't think was worth it. Yeah.
Do you have the ability to change that kind of formula? Do you think you can put more positives on the board going forward?
Oh, absolutely. Now I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's kind of like you're at a point where things have happened.
Yep.
Right. So I averaged last year 40 hours of airtime in Canada, nationwide airtime a week. Is one of the most aired daytime shows in this country.
Yep.
It's a lot of airtime. Like, I mean, every single day on the Oprah Winfrey Network, like 4 episodes or 6 episodes back to back, and Slice and Lifetime, and insert all the other networks that carry the show in this country.
Yep.
In repeats all the time. The things that we film this month will air in repeats until 2028. So I know whatever I'm saying now and doing now on the show, those episodes are going to air for 5 years in repeats. Pardon me. So and there's no guidebook and there's no duty of care. There's no, not to criticize the networks, but there's no, people are going to have I don't know. Again, it just like stumbling into things without thinking about them first. It's the only time that I wish I would have maybe taken a slight step back and thought, okay, well, let's lay the foundation first, because like I said, we were building this, we were sewing the parachute after we'd already jumped.
Yep.
And it does mess with you, and people are it's opened the best doors and the worst doors so far in my life. And I just didn't handle it well. And I mean, so I'm going to be very vague and broad strokes about this, but it's important to be able to make my point. In Mexico, somebody came to the house that we were at in a private residence in Mexico, got into the property, was not happy, from Calgary, was not happy that I am in the LGBTQ community, was not happy that we have trans people on the show, was not happy that I'm giving a platform to those people. And she wanted to hurt me physically, and did. And we got like very close to it being like a very much more serious incident. That I don't think it was a direct result of the show. But then also my handling of that afterwards with everything else, I ruined almost every single relationship that I have as a result, because it set me on such a downward spiral that it's like you can't talk about it because you don't want to draw more attention to it. But it's like, is this going to happen all the time now? Is there more people from this? Is there more? Like, I went in the news. I was in the news last year in Post Media talking about how in 2022 I had 47 messages in my inbox of like, you should go kill yourself, or some variation of that, and like very detailed, and people that know your address and know where you're at and stuff, and that people don't step in to help with that either. And so it's it was overwhelming. Like January of this year just became so overwhelming, where my stress level was just at an 11 out of 10, and I was just blowing up at everyone, and I didn't know how to handle it. And it was like this, it's big and serious, and like it's anyway, made it through obviously, but like did not handle it well. And if I maybe had 50 friends at the beginning of the year, I have like 3 now who actually recognize, not to make an excuse for how I was treating people, but it's a very small group of people that and I've gone back to everybody and said, listen, I'm sorry for like, this is what was going on and I couldn't explain it at the time, but like, this is why. It was like, you know, anything could have set me off to just blow up. Mm-hmm. And it's a very small group of people that recognized what was going on and kind of were, you know, could appreciate especially after I explained it as well. So it was, again, I don't think that would have happened had I not been in this position.
Yeah.
So I'm totally rambling and not making much sense.
You make a lot of sense. The idea of like having a platform now, mm-hmm. you know, part of this, the initial concept of having a show is very simple.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's creating some connections. It's scratching, you know, you got this actor, you know, this vibe to you, mm-hmm. get people on camera. Like, it's very basic.
Yeah.
And then it turns into this.
Yeah.
And there's no blueprint for this.
No.
So now.
And I'm in charge. And we have kind of like free reign for doing whoever we want on the show, whatever we want on the show. Mm-hmm. It's a huge platform to have. Mm-hmm. It's big, but it's not. I mean, it's, you know, I walked here from my apartment and not one person stopped me or knew, you know, but it's like going to in the airport, there'll be people, or in a restaurant, there'll be people. If there's the bigger the concentration of people is, the more chance there is. Yep. And then it's always that, are they going to be happy or are they going to be, right? So it messes with you a lot. Like, I remember being at the gym and like, in the cardio section, they've got like all the TV screens along the wall, and I'm on the stair climbing machine, like ready to, like if that had been just a little bit higher and I could have jumped, but I was stuck on the stair climbing machine. And I look up and they have Slice on one of, like the network Slice on one of the show. And I'm like, and I'm wondering why there was just this woman on the bike or elliptical thing in front, and she kept looking at me, and I'm like, just stop staring at me, because I know it's embarrassing that I'm like, wow, she's really not hiding the fact about how out of shape I am on this stair machine. And then I look up and I realize, I'm like, because there I am, you know, on the, so she's like, it's just as I'm dying. So anyway, it's like there's weird things like that. That messes with you.
How do you can't be prepared for those situations. So
no, and
what is
walks
it?
You through it.
Do you have anybody in your world that's kind of dealt with, you know, being a voice and a face on a?
Now I do. Now through the show, I have made really strong friends with some really, you know, people that have been really successful in this industry. Yeah. And I'm very grateful for that. So and that's one of those things where it's amazing through the show, like getting to be friends with people that I never thought I would be friends with, who I spend hours talking to every day about anything and everything that we met there. I mean, even like Natasha Henstridge is from Fort McMurray, and she came on the show and we became friends, and she's hilarious. She's been on the show multiple times, and, you know, Vanessa Williams and Emmanuel Vaugier. Like, there's people that have come on that you know their face, you know their name, and you've watched them on TV and stuff, and now they're willing to
talk.
Yeah.
Does it help having them in your world, that you can kind of, you know, when you're trying to figure this new road, you know, when you're in public spaces and you kind of, your spidey senses are up and you have to deal with these things, it's just the reality. Must be helpful having these people in your world that can.
Yeah, like talking to someone who's done it before, right? Like a mentor, kind of, who's done it before. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's hard to. I don't think you can, and I just have a very small taste of it. I don't think you can relate to it unless you've experienced it. But that idea of the idea that there are however many people watch the show around the world at a given time every week. Yep. There are that many people that are now know who you are, know your name, know your face, know a little bit about you, and have an opinion about you, and you have no idea. It's an intimate, like, television is such a very different than movies. Because a movie, you go to the theater and it's a film and it's a theater and it's an experience to watch a movie. But television, especially daytime TV, because we air in the daytime and late at night are our two main time slots. That's an intimate. You're in people's house, in their living room, in their bedroom. Yep. It's their private time. It's their quiet time. It's a very like a one-way intimate relationship with people, which I'm grateful for. Obviously, it's an amazing opportunity. It's just, you run into people that don't, like I was walking in Vancouver with the director on the show. We were walking down the seawall and somebody passed opposite us and clocked eyes. And I can always tell I can tell when someone makes eye contact and I know when they know. And then he circled back and grabbed me by the shoulder and he like, can I swear on this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He's like, fuck you faggot. And then looked at her and he's like, fuck you too. And then just kept walking. Like this big, massive, muscly guy, like terrified me. And yeah, so there's, you always wonder then, right? And it makes you paranoid.
From the outside, I would never have thought that those experiences would happen.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm being naive or I don't like to play out these like worst case scenarios. I'm sure when you started this, you probably didn't play those out either.
No, I got my first message saying, go kill yourself. I'm like, oh, okay. And then the second one came, and then it was like about a few months after we started airing in the States, somebody sent a picture, like a Google Earth image of the house I was living in at the time and had photoshopped it on fire with me and my dog in the window with like a noose around my neck as saying like, watch your back or something. Or if you, it was much more detailed than that. But anyway, that's when I started realizing, so I reached out to one of the people I know at one of the networks, and I'm like, I'm struggling with how do I handle this? And she said, once you start airing in the States, it's kind of like the Wild West down there. So it's just like kind of it's a hazard of the job, I guess. Yeah. So I would have never thought I'd be living in an apartment, but I moved into at the house that I was in. I realized, okay, when I'm sleeping at night, there are two between the street and my bed. When I'm sleeping, there are two doors. So now I've moved into an apartment with security, and there are 7 access points or 7 kind of barriers to my bed at night when I'm sleeping, and like those kind of weird things, right?
And that goes back to the idea of like the best thing and worst thing that's happened to you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why it's like, is it worth? I think if you were in the States making, because you don't make anywhere near as much money in Canada as you make in the cost to what they sell one ad spot for is more than what they pay me for a whole year for the show in each network individually.
Yeah.
And so if you were making, Ellen level money in the States, sure, you buy your big mansion in Beverly Hills and live behind your gilded gates.
We have a security guard run around with you.
Exactly. You don't make that kind of money in Canada on television, right? So it's like it's good and you're very fortunate, but it's not, I'm not buying a house and putting walls up around me and living in this bubble and I just could stop working tomorrow if I wanted to.
Where, all that being said, pros and cons.
Yeah.
The vision to go forward, what does that look like for you?
I'm at a really interesting crossroads.
I've caught you at a time.
Yeah. I don't know what the future will hold. I think the show is it's an amazing foundation for a platform. And now it's, what do I do with that platform?
Interesting.
Because I think if you are in a position where you have a voice, you should use it for more than just, oh, look at this product I'm being paid to talk about on Instagram.
Yeah.
I think you should use it for some kind of, whatever that is. I've always been interested in politics. I've always thought that would be something I'd be interested in doing. I get very passionate about specific issues. I disagree with some of the way that something, like when I just look at the state of the world right now, there are things that I think are ludicrous that shouldn't be happening. Yes, I'm really trying to figure out how do I've got the platform. If the show ends tomorrow, I've still got the platform, the following and the platform, right? So it's, what do you do with that moving forward, and how do you harness that moving forward?
Is it like trying to hone in on your purpose?
I think so. Yeah, because Okay, so it was actually, I'm not just saying this to work her into the conversation. It was the premier, Danielle Smith. We did something recently together and spent a long time together.
Yep.
And she said something that hit the nail on the head for me, that she used to be an actress in Vancouver on movie sets. Yeah.
Random.
And this is before politics, and she had studied, she said she went to university initially and studied drama or something in that realm, and then went to Vancouver to be an actress and like did a bunch of stuff on friends' movie sets that have movies, extra and background work and small parts and stuff. And she said it was fun and exciting, but it was also boring. And it's someone else's words, and it's someone else's, it's not, outside of that, what have you done? And then she went back and studied speech and, entered into politics. And that resonated with me. Not that I'm bored, but just the difference between, I don't even know how to articulate it. It just, when she was talking about it, it really resonated with me that I'm not bored with what I do because it's so diverse, but I don't have a concrete way to, I can speak and I can advocate and I can lobby and I can just bitch and complain about everything. And, enough people listen that sometimes things happen, but I'm not making meaningful change, if that makes sense.
Complete.
So the other interesting conversation that we had was talking about kind of that notion of being in the public and the following and everything, because her following and her public presence is very concentrated in Alberta. She wouldn't have been able to walk the few blocks that I walked to get here without being stopped or seen or whatever.
Yep.
My following is far and wide and very broad. And I wonder if what's more meaningful, being able to have a very small and concentrated and enact a difference and kind of on a regional scale and be able to have a seat at the table and make a difference and impact people's life versus this far and wide, broad audience, and hope that what you're saying resonates with someone somewhere, perhaps. Right? Does that make sense? And I'm actively working through this right now. What do I want? Yep. Like I said, I turned 30 this year. I don't know what I'm going to do. I have no idea what comes next, or do I want to keep doing the show? Do I want to keep doing whatever? I know that I like the business, and I have a very corporate business brain, and I'm happier on that side of things. So I really don't know. Yeah, I really don't know.
Well, what's cool about this show is that now that I'm connected with you, I get to watch this play out. So it's interesting, like capturing this moment in time when you're thinking these things.
Yeah.
And then
maybe I'll run for office.
Which, put it on the board, right?
I don't know. I don't know. Are we still good for time?
Oh yeah, we're good. Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's like the perfect, it's all the timing's just dead perfect.
Okay, you. I feel like I'm rambling, so
I know, but
ask me questions.
This is the twist for you, is being on that side of the.
This is why I suck at interviews normally. Like when you're on CBC or CTV or whatever, and they ask you a question, and I just could go on forever, and then the interview's over, and you've barely even answered their first question. So
totally,
this is different for me.
Yeah, which is cool. Which the way you've put a bow on this one, like it's just when you're on that side of the table, I think you're answering questions, and it might not feel succinct, and there's probably a bunch.
We're
of
not
thoughts
done yet, are we?
It's like right there.
Oh
yeah.
Oh okay.
But but when I'm here listening to it, the path is it's perfect. Like it's perfect, and even how it starts, where it goes, and then to the very end, right here.
Yeah. Just
how when you're like, I don't know where I'm gonna go.
I don't. I have absolutely no idea. And I couldn't tell you what my life will look like by Christmas time this year. I have absolutely no clue.
Which is exciting, scary, and intimidating.
Really scary. There's which maybe subconsciously I set it up this way, but I'm so used to that. There's never been, the one thing my life lacks in every aspect is a constant. There's always some kind of a I know Lisa will watch my mom will watch this and she goes, no, I'm your but it's like you have to, yes, for almost half of my life, yes, but in the whole from start to present,
Yep.
there's not been one person thing that's it's always in a state of like there's always some kind of variable or a state of flux or something. And this is the first time where I just don't know what is and I apply, in January when I came back, I was done after Mexico. I was like, I'm out. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not interested. And I applied for like probably 300 jobs.
No way.
In media, in advertising, in everything. And not one single person would hire me. Yeah. So then that was scary. And for multiple reasons. Like I applied for jobs at networks and it was like, no, we can't hire you because you are so overexposed on a different network.
Yeah.
And like, well, that network doesn't want to hire me because, well, if you're working for us, you're not making a show anymore and we make money off your show. So it's like you have the whole world. I don't want to sound like I'm complaining because I'm definitely not. It's just so weird. You've got all of these opportunities, but you also don't at the same time because no matter what I do, I've got the airtime. I'm going to be on TV. I know for at least the next 5 years I'll be on TV every single day in 56 countries. And yeah, like it's
heavy.
It is. And just trying to figure out how do you harness that or what do you do with that? Or like, what do you I can't go and work. I mean, I could, but it's even real estate got to the point where like it got so busy, but it was not meaningful work. It was people wanting to hang out, people wanting to, whatever.
Yep.
And so you kind of put yourself in this, you're in a fishbowl basically. And there's only so much a fish can do. It sounded better in my head before.
No, it's like
that.
no, it's you just don't from the outside. There's no way someone like me would ever have that perspective, right? You don't. This is the reality of.
Yeah, and I try to talk about it to people, and they don't. And then that's again, it's like people are like, "Oh, well, don't be ungrateful." I'm like, I'm not ungrateful. I'm just the truth of the matter is, I haven't made enough money from what I've done to retire at 30.
Yep.
But it's not gonna last for. But it's the options are limited going forward, and it's kind of once you're in that.
Yeah.
It's
like a 5-year cycle.
Yeah. So do you keep the show going? Do you? Yeah, I don't know. Trying to find a way to do something. I think do something with more. I'm anxious to do something with more. I got to be careful how I phrase this, but with more substance and more impact beyond just entertaining. Because it does also, even though it was intentional, that it was supposed to be an escapism television and like meaningless television to just distract you from your day to day. At a certain point, you kind of realize, oh, everything I'm doing is this meaningless distraction, and it would be nice to be able to. So I don't know. I have no idea. I've got there are options. I'm thinking about a couple different things. Yeah.
And I think listen, we just met, and based on the story that I heard, opportunities find you, or you're in situations where these random occurrences happen that open a door that you didn't even know existed. It's not a settling way to live, though.
No, it's not.
It's like
it's very uncertain, and I've never had this kind of. I'm very anxious about it right now, like the last year or so. I think because I realized we signed one particular deal for the show, which kind of elevated it to a new level. And that's when I realized, because up until a certain point, I could, it was just this thing that I had done that was kind of a fun thing. And I could have hit the end button on it. And gone off and done whatever I wanted to. And then it would always just be this cool story, 10 years from now. Oh, I used to host this show. And it did good for a little bit. And it was fun. And I met all these cool people and made some cool friends. And then it is at a point now, I feel like, based on the hundreds of job interviews I did and the people that I spoke to and just trying to see what my options would be, we've hit this point now where it's the thing. It's all of a sudden, it's not a thing that, it's not something that I did. It's now the thing that defines me. And now I've got a second show out on television, and now I've got this other stuff coming. And so it's all of a sudden now kind of you're boxed in, but you're not in this.
Yep.
I don't know how to explain the feeling.
This is all new.
Yeah. And
new.
people don't understand. I do wish I still had my friend group from, like this time last year, which I don't anymore. My fault, obviously. But just trying to figure it out and try to find, who has done this before. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I give you some insight and
what do I do next? Do I do another 5 seasons of a television show? Do I run for office? I think I arrogantly, I think if I ran, I could win in an election of some kind. Do I want to do that? Do I want to go be a lawyer? Do I want to do? But then who hires you? Who's going to want to hire you as a lawyer? You're the idiot in a bathrobe on television drinking wine all day with celebrities. Who's going to want you to do
the lawyer in a robe?
Oh my God.
I think it's it's gonna be very interesting to watch from the outside. I think it's
Now I'm anxious thinking about it.
Sorry. But yeah, we're like right here. So I end the show with one question.
Okay.
When I say Calgary, where's your head go?
It's home. Yeah. I think Calgary is that. Calgary, and I think in a large part Alberta as a whole, as a place where anyone with a little bit of work can achieve anything, no matter what it is. I would have never thought I'd have a syndicated television show based out of Calgary, but I did. It's just so diverse, and there's so much opportunity, and it's a place where it's affordable. You can live a nice life in Calgary without, it's not, your price point is not like a Vancouver price point.
Yeah.
There's every industry, every people. There's multiculturalism here, where you can meet people from different backgrounds and different voices. I just think, to me, it's a place where you can do anything. If you're willing to work, anything is possible.
Love it.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking the time.
Of course, this is fun.
Yeah, this has been really cool.
It went by really quick.
Yeah, totally. You'll be surprised when I tell you what we just did. You'll be like, what?
I know. And then, but hopefully for people watching as well, they're like, oh God, is this over yet?
No, because it's
so I'm always so worried that it's not interesting.
I think it's listen, you're not the first person to say that. I think part of it is because, I might generalize the statement, but I think we all think that our story is kind of boring.
Right.
Because we've been living it for 30 years, 46 years.
Are you 46 years old?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Old.
Pardon me.
But we've been living it, right? It's not we don't look at it special, right? It's just we've been doing this thing. But for people to hear this story, for the one person that actually like knows you as X, as this TV person, but now has this behind it, they're gonna be like, now I really know this person. Now I'm really, it's like, this is different. And I think, your story is not boring, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, this has been, it's been really fun.
Cool.
I'm not used to being the one answering the questions.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Thanks for your time.
Of course. Thank you for having me.